I'll just tell you how we are going to focus on this session. So I know that there are people from different kind of backgrounds with different kind of years of experience also. There's someone from the power sector too, right? And I know I've been talking to so many students with all different kind of profiles from, whether it is defense sector to the corporate world, all kinds of sectors. Now, when people are coming from different kind of backgrounds with different kind of experiences, somebody has less than 2 years experience. There are people with 10 years plus experience. There are people with 15 years plus experience. Everybody has this question in mind that what after MBA, right? And we always realize that, and we've been working with students for so many years now, and we've realized that a lot of people are behind this thing that, okay, let me just finish with my GMAT, then I will think of my MBA. Then I'll think what I have to choose. Let me think of, maybe taking my GRE, then I'll think of what I have to do. But the most important part is, and which I keep telling everyone, is this is a very big investment for you. And at Crackverbal, the reason that we are creating this career track sessions is to make sure that when you're making this huge investment, and obviously if you have already been part of the cost of an MBA webinar, if you have not, please watch the YouTube video. It's going to be, we are going to upload it tomorrow. So you can go and watch the cost of an MBA webinar. It's going to be upwards of at least 40 lakhs from at least if you're looking at India, and if you're looking at abroad, it's a lot more. And when you're making such a huge decision, it is very, very, very important to be very well informed. And that's exactly why we are creating these webinars, to make sure that each of you who are part of this session or who are going through this session with us understand that what are the unknowns that you don't know. This is exactly what we are going to focus on in today's webinar too. All right, so cool. So let's get started on the next aspect, which is understanding the need for speed in your career, right? Now, a lot of people, the reason why you look at doing an MBA is also because you want to say you want better career progression, you want international exposure, or you feel that organic speed of how you're going to grow will take you maybe 5 to 10 years to get to where you want to get to, but an MBA can maybe expedite this whole career progression. How many of you agree with this? Just type in a yes or no. You agree with the fact that an MBA can expedite your career progression, or MBA can help you get to where you want to go to sooner. All right, Siddesh. Hi Purvi. Hi Ravi. Yes, perfect. All of you said yes. So, okay, we are all on the same page. With that, let me get started. Let me just tell you a little bit more about the webinars that we have already done. Please go back. So this is inspired by Netflix and all those OTT channels where we say previously on Crackverbal. So we've done some webinars on PM roles. We have done some webinar on growth roles, which is sales. We have done some webinars on C-suite roles post-MBA. We have done webinar on cost of MBA. We've also done another webinar on the consulting career options. So today's webinar is going to be about leadership roles and what are the specific leadership programs that people have, that companies have, and what can help you get to that level. With that, let me first introduce Kshitij. I know my slide was first, but let me first introduce Kshitij. Welcome, Kshitij. Welcome to this webinar, and we are so thankful for you to doing this for us. Kshitij is also mentored students, helping them apply to top schools abroad. Kshitij, over to you to give you a background and introduction about yourself.
Hey, I appreciate that, Shrikala, and thanks for having me here. It's definitely a pleasure. The pleasure is all mine. So yeah, I'll go ahead and quickly introduce myself. So I like to say I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I stepped out of my family business in about 2018. I like to, just like how people say they're the first one to graduate from college in their family. I'm probably the first one in my family to actually step out of the family business and work full-time somewhere else outside of the family business. So that's one part I'm really proud of. But yeah, I'm now a part. So I got my MBA from Cornell, graduated in 2020. During my MBA, I interned as a Pathways, and then I'm now a part of the Pathways Leadership Development Program. My primary focus has been creating and running programs on improving our what we call DEA, which is delivery estimated accuracy, and then also cost optimization and continuous improvement programs. So again, happy to be here, happy to answer all the questions about various leadership development programs, and obviously more specifically Pathways at Amazon.
Before we get started, let me just also introduce myself. I'm Shrikala. I'm one of the co-founders of Crackverbal. I have more than 12, I mean, I've been with Crackverbal. We started Crackverbal sometime in 2012. So it's been over more than a decade that we've been in this industry, helping students getting into top schools, predominantly focusing on test prep and admission consulting. We've helped students get into top schools across the world. I've been also been part of the ISB Goldman Sachs Women Fellow Program, which is 10,000 Women Entrepreneur Program. I'm also part of the Cherry Blair Foundation, where I help women entrepreneurs across the world with their, business, guiding them on their businesses, right? So let's get started. Before, so my first question to you, Kshitij, is why do top companies even create these leadership programs, or why do they need these leadership programs? What are your thoughts?
I think the idea is that every company wants, at the helm of the company, every company ultimately wants homegrown talent. So what these leadership development programs, what they do is they sort of start you within the company, not at exactly at the highest level role, but they curate an environment and a structure around your growth where you grow with the company, you understand the basics, you understand what the company culture is, and in the way grow with the company. And also ultimately, when for example from pathways, and I know we'll talk more about it, but once you graduate from the program and you are at a director or like elite level, you are ready to lead at that level. You've already experienced what we at Amazon call crucible moments. You've navigated through tough situations. You've taken some critical decisions, popular or maybe even unpopular. You've made the mistakes, and you have hopefully learned from it. You've successfully tackled it, and you're just ready to lead at that higher level. I think that's the whole point of companies having leadership development programs, basically grooming you in a nutshell, if I were to say.
Right. So what are the different kind of leadership development programs that, we'll just quickly brief on that also. What different kind of leadership programs are, available, and in what kind of companies, if you have some insights on that too.
Yeah, I'll give a two-way answer to this. So I'll start with a more generalized approach that, so companies like obviously Amazon and then Danaher, GE are companies that typically have, I think even Google used to have a leadership development program. So that's generalization of, these kinds of companies. I would say all the probably Fortune top 100 or top 50 companies would have leadership development programs. When it comes to Amazon, we have 4 different kind of leadership development programs. There's a finance leadership development program. There's a retail leadership development program. There's a product management program, and then there's Pathways, which focuses on strategy and operations. That's the leadership development program. So when it comes to Amazon, we have 4 different types depending on your area of interest and what do you want your specialization to be in. That's you can choose that track, obviously.
Right. And why is an MBA required for these leadership development programs? Why do they keep that as a criteria?
I think the MBA program in general is I like to say it's a crash course of everything that at least 95% of what you are going to experience in your professional career journey. That's one of the key reasons why they would have MBA as that, let's call it a threshold, that you have to have an MBA to be a part of the leadership development program. Because it overall, like if you look at the MBA course and the structure of an MBA, it grooms you in a way that you first of all, when you talk about I think the learning process, you focus on economics, you focus on finance, you focus on executive leadership and such roles or such courses. So that gives you an idea of, what does it take to actually run a business? An MBA also gives you an option at some point to specialize or grow vertically instead of just horizontally, and grow vertically into, this is what I want to specialize in, even within finance, or let's say within operations, this is what I want to specialize in. So I think that's the reason why an MBA is sort of a mandatory for leadership for such programs.
So how are these typically structured? Maybe you could just walk us through how are these programs structured, and Uh,
Yeah.
what is the criteria that they look at? Maybe we can go deeper into it, on the subsequent slides. But maybe you could give us an overview of how are these programs structured.
To give a brief overview, leadership development programs, they are either vertical. For example, if you look at Amazon, so there's the finance leadership development program where 80% of your time and energy and what you do is going to be focused on the financial aspect of things. And then in general, you would obviously be working with multiple stakeholders across different business division, whether it's operations, advertising, retail, whatever. And then there are companies that have a more broad leadership development program. For example, Forte or Danaher or maybe GE has, where you spend a certain amount of time in a particular domain. So let's say you spend a particular amount of time in sales, you would spend some time in marketing, you would spend some time in finance, and some time in operations, where you get a holistic view, and then ultimately graduate with the program and decide, okay, this is what I want to probably specialize in. For example, I want to be a director in the finance space, or I want to be a director in the operations space. So that's the typical structure of a general leadership development program.
Right. So maybe we can go slightly more into details in Pathway, because I think we would like to know more about the Pathways program too, because I think the Pathway program is an extension or can be a similar mapping to how other leadership programs also are. How are the Pathways program structures? What are the timelines? Maybe a little bit details about the program. So I'll ask you more questions as and when you talk about it.
Okay, no, absolutely, I would love that. So the overall goal of the program is to it starts you at, so I'm not sure how familiar everyone is about how Amazon works in terms of career progression. So I'll start with that. Overall, what the way we measure our designation, let's say at Amazon, it's in levels, where the CEO is probably at an L11, L12 level, and then director, you're a director at L8 level, and then VP at L10, etc. So the goal of the program is to start you at an L6 level, and then ultimately when you graduate from the program, you graduate at a director level at an L8 plus level. And typically this takes a lot of time. But the way the Pathways program is designed, and the idea is to fast track your career and to get you to that L8 plus level, so that you can lead a particular division in the company and then continue to grow with the company. That's how it's structured. You go through, so the Pathways program obviously specializes or is focused in operations. You start in an operations or area manager or operations manager role. You understand the basics. This is when, what I like to think, you understand what the culture of the company is, what kind of mindset is required to be a part of Amazon and Pathways, and we can dive in deeper into that later. But that's when you experience that. It sort of is the foundation of your career with Amazon, and not just your career with Amazon, but it's sort of a foundation on what kind of leader will you be going forward. Right. This is when you explore what your intrinsic qualities are. How do you lead? How do you work with a group of people? How do you lead people that report to you? So you start with that level, then you go to the senior operations level, where sort of you have at least anywhere between 800 to 1,000 people reporting to you at different levels, which involves like operations managers, area managers, and obviously our Amazon associates as well. And you lead a particular department, and you're always focused. You wake up every day with the mindset that, okay, what can I do better today? What can I think for 4 months, 6 months down the line? What do I need to do to get to that level from where I currently am, right? From where my department or my division is currently at. And then obviously you go to the GM or the director level. At the director level, you have multiple sites under you. It's almost like, think about, I know, to give a reference, that you're essentially a COO, for example, and you have maybe 8 to 9 different manufacturing units under you, and you're looking at overall managing that. And man, I cannot. At this point, you probably have like 10,000s of people reporting to you, and you're sort of managing that. So at that level, it's very important, and that's where the leadership development program structure comes in. It has trained you all this time in the 3.5 years. How do you effectively delegate? How do you delegate but still you're able to manage perfectly and get the results that you wanted? So that's a long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
Right. So I have a question over here. You mentioned that it takes you from an L6 to L8 by the time you finish this program. What timeline are we looking at for this? And otherwise, how much time does someone take to go from an L6 to an L8?
Yeah, so it's typically 4 years. It also depends on your business line, anywhere between 4 to 5 years. But I would say it's typically 4.5 years to get to that level.
Right, right. So, more from the Pathways community part. So, when I was researching on this Pathways program, I realized that, there are so many people across geographies because Amazon is a global company. There's so many people across geographies that go through these programs. So, is there like a number that they have, or is it more business driven? And how is the network and the community work, especially for the Pathways program?
Yeah, I would say it is definitely like for any other company also, it's definitely business driven. But I would say like, so Pathways are like, obviously it's a premier program within Amazon, and a lot of focus goes into selecting, okay, who are we getting, who's getting admitted into the Pathways program. And so there's a lot of rigorous process around it. Hopefully a lot of you will go through it and successfully navigate that. But yeah, it is definitely, I would say, depending on the business need, how Amazon is growing, not just in the US, but across geographies. I think we have Pathways program in 5 different regions now, including India. So I know in India, I think we exclusively recruit from IIM, Ahmedabad, and ISB. I think that's the list for now, but it is growing more and more. But yeah, it's definitely based on business needs.
Right. And what kind of problems are you solving? If you could just give us, the one part is okay, the people management part where the number keeps growing as you go higher level. Can you give an example of what kind of problems are you solving? Maybe something that you're working on right now in layman language.
Yeah. So I mean, I obviously cannot disclose a lot of numbers or specifics, but the kind of problems. So we at Amazon are focused. Our entire philosophy, I don't know if anyone has read the book on Amazon, it's called The Everything Store, but our entire philosophy is that we are obsessed about customer. We are obsessed about delivering the best kind of results that are customer centric. And one of the problems around it is, with the changing scenario, how do we deliver faster, right? How do we nail the promise that we have committed to the customer? So one of such problems that I was working around, and it had a regional or a national level impact, was improving our delivery estimated accuracy, which is pretty much, if this is what we have committed to the customer, that okay, this is when you would probably receive your order. How do we make sure that we can optimize it? How do we make sure that, okay, maybe we can deliver it even faster? And then how do we have our systems in place where at one point, let's say today it's, I don't know how many of you have played around with the app, but if it says, okay, this will get to you by tomorrow if you order within 4 hours, how do we reduce this lead time? How do I get this to you tomorrow, even if you order within the next 6 hours? So that gives you 2 extra hours, that gives the customer 2 extra hours to still place the order and get it tomorrow. Now it might seem like a small thing, but there's a lot of moving parts, then lots of different segments in the value chain that goes into understanding, okay, how do we optimize this? And it's a big impact for the company as well, and for the business, and obviously for the customer primarily. But that's in a nutshell, that's one particular problem, or I wouldn't call it a problem, a good challenge, a healthy challenge that I, and along with my team, has been working on.
Right. So one question that came to my mind is, so what kind of expertise is required for this, right? Is it more like a supply chain kind of a thing, or do you need to focus on the finances aspect of it? What is required more from a skill perspective to work on such challenges?
That's a really good question, Shri, and I get this a lot. And in fact, we often end up thinking, okay, what do we need for this? But I have a different take on it. So I would touch on Amazon's leadership principles for this. Instead of focusing on, okay, what particular hard skills do I need for this, I would I saw someone's going to be, oh man, someone just posted that if they can send their direct complaints to me. All right, sure, we can do that. But continuing with the question, so I would say if you go back to the leadership principles at Amazon, which I would highly recommend for everyone to check out, delivering results, insisting on highest standards. When we think on those lines, when we live and breathe those leadership principles, it will help you tackle these tasks. I say you do not have to be the expert in finance to solve a complex finance problem. Instead, you should have the ability to ask the right questions to the right person and figure it out. You should be able to learn quickly. I'm not saying you don't need to learn finance. You should be able to learn it quickly, ask the right questions, and work with a finance expert or what we call the SME, the subject matter expert, in a way that you are working as a team, you're addressing the problem, and you're delivering results. So and this is what the leadership development programs are about as well, where you can be a SME in one particular area, but to get results across the board, you don't really have to be a subject matter expert or a master in every specific domain. So yeah.
Interesting. So more from people who join this program, right? The thought is that since it's a 4-year long program, is there an option where somebody feels that, this is not something I can hack, or this is not something I like, or this is not something I enjoy? What can I do next? So does the Amazon Pathway program give you an exit option, or what are the options you can evaluate? Because with every role that you do, you are also figuring out whether you're good at it and whether you like it or not, right?
Yeah.
So when you're getting into something like this, how does the exit strategy work, and or is there a strategy also around it?
Yeah. No, it happens sometimes where you come into the program, you're 1 year into the program, and you're like, okay, you know what, I maybe don't like operations as much, or maybe I'm better at a retail role, a finance role. I like that better. That's more my calling. So that's the good thing about, I would say, Pathways and Amazon. One, Pathways put you in a position where if you want to step out of Pathways, there are companies outside of Amazon and there are roles within Amazon that would take you in a heartbeat, because they know what kind of rigorous process you've gone through before you got recruited through Pathways, and even during the Pathways. They know you set a very high bar for yourself, right? So in terms of exits, like within Amazon, you can look at multiple roles across multiple business lines. You'd be surprised once you start exploring how many different business lines exist within Amazon, not just operations, not just AWS, but the kind of solid infrastructure that we have just to run Amazon. So the kind of roles that exist. So it's very easy to navigate. I've seen some people do that very successfully and are happier in their next role. The Pathways team does support with that. They will help you network. They will help you get a list of what exists right now in current market. This is what's growing, or if this is your area of interest, this is where you should look at. So the Pathways team does help. When it comes to navigating maybe outside of Amazon, I personally do not. Obviously, I'm with Amazon. I love it, but I have seen people who would navigate outside, go to other companies. I would say it's fairly simple. Other companies are very familiar with the Pathways program, and I think it shouldn't be too hard. You network your way into something else, focusing on, okay, this is what you've achieved so far.
Right. So how does this whole process work? When do they start hiring, and what do they typically look for in a candidate?
Yeah. So when it comes to the timeline, so I started as an intern. So we typically start looking for interns maybe 8 months, roughly 8 to 9 months before the internships start. So internships here in the US typically start in July or August. So we typically start looking at least 6 months prior to that. You would see the Pathways team has been very active on LinkedIn as well. And obviously you can go to jobs.amazon.com and see when the recs open up. So that's sort of the rough timeline in terms of how do you get it. So that's the internship. You can, like it happened in my case, you can go through the internship process and take the full-time job offer if offered. If you let's say you did not intern as a Pathways, you interned somewhere as consulting, wherever. And then you want to try the Pathways, try to get into the Pathways program full-time. It's the same timeline. There are different cohorts that starting July, August, September. And then depending on when you graduate, you can start applying for the full-time position as well. So that's the timeline bit of it. In terms of what is needed, I would go back to the leadership principles. I cannot help but go to. So yeah, it's what we test. It's a pretty rigorous, I would say that, just so that everyone knows, it's a pretty rigorous interview process. You will have directors interviewing you for Pathways role, and you'll have 4 interviews, 1 hour long each. And obviously there will be a phone screening before that. But it would primarily be focused on, okay, in your past experience, how have you tackled situations? How have you shown that you adhere to these leadership principles? How have you demonstrated that you've insisted on high standards? You have earned trust. You have delivered results. Were you curious? Did you learn, and were you being curious? So we pretty much test you on leadership principles, and it's mostly behavioral questions. A lot of follow-up questions.
Oh, okay. So are these like multiple rounds of interviews, and who are these people who are interviewing you?
Yeah, so it would be anywhere between multiple rounds. So it's four different interviews. Usually it's back to back, so 4 to 5 hours of rigorous interviewing, and you're good. I drank a Red Bull before, and in between my interviews, I highly recommend that. You're probably gonna need that. And so not multiple rounds. It's just like one phone screen, and then if you get the final interview, it's 4 interviews back to back. That's typically it, like 4 interviews and you're good. Amazon, we are proud of getting back with results in like 5 days. So we call it the 5-day promise. So you will hear back from us in 5 days after your interview, and it would mostly be L7 and L8s that interview you. We have something called a bar raiser at Amazon. Bar raisers it's a specific program to become a bar raiser itself, which should tell you how fulfilling working at Amazon is. To become a bar raiser at Amazon, you have to go through at least 150 interviews. You have to do 100 or 150 interviews. You have to specialize in that skill of finding the right talent. You have to master the skill of hire and develop the best, and then you become a bar raiser. And the goal of the bar raiser is to push the candidate to see will they be better than 50% of the candidates in the existing role.
Wow.
Right. So we focus on a lot on hiring the right kind of person for any role across Amazon, not just Pathways. But that's sort of again long-winded answer around, okay, how does the recruiting work?
But that's interesting. So next question, is there a magic formula to get in? Or more from the perspective of the audience, right? Most of them are people who are decided that they want to do an MBA, and they are exploring leadership roles. They're exploring different avenues of what they can do next, more from their leveraging their background from, say, oil and gas or finance or IT or technology, or so many different industries that we saw over here. So more from the people who are looking at doing an MBA, what are the things that they can do? Are there something that they can think of or do before they get into an MBA program? Any thoughts on that?
The secret, I would say that the secret is having the right mindset. One, you have to have the right mindset. And when I say have the right mindset is, if you think you come from a different background, let's say you come from advertising and you want to get into Pathways, for someone else, it would seem, man, can I really do it? Like I come from advertising. I've been drawing caricatures all my life. I've been thinking of how to advertise, how to sell shampoo all my life. How do I work in Pathways and operations? Work that to your advantage. That's the key. Work your different background to your advantage. How can you get things out of your own experience that set you up for success differently than anyone else that would have been in your position. So that's sort of for me, I think that's the key. And yes, when we talk starting early, 100%, you first have to understand yourself. What exactly is it that you want? Do some research on Pathways program. Obviously, if you're already attending this seminar, this is a part of your research. This hopefully gets you some insights, into what Pathways and life as a Pathways looks like. Understand Amazon. What does Amazon look for? Satyam, I see your question. I'm going to get to that shortly. So understand Amazon. What does Amazon look for? I highly recommend reading The Everything Store. That's the book. It is probably the crash course on understanding what the philosophy is, what the culture at Amazon is. And when I talk about culture, I put a lot of emphasis on it, that why do we have a day one mindset? Why do we believe in failing forward? All these things you often hear when I were in your shoes, I used to hear these in motivational speakers talk about, oh, you should fail forward. Oh, you should have this kind of mindset, etc., etc. It's only after I joined Amazon and I joined Pathways that I fully understood that, okay, it is actually possible to do that. And I did that firsthand. So that is what you have to do. It's not just words. You have to have that mindset and understand the leadership principles. Do all of this before and during your MBA. Networking plays a big role. Pathways community is very active on LinkedIn and across the board. So please do get in touch with the recruiters, introduce yourself, start early. If you're interested in the program, I would say reach out even before your MBA starts, that, hey, I'm getting into this MBA from this particular school and I would love to be a part of Pathways program down the line. Reach out to them. That shows the sincerity. That shows that you really want to be a part of Amazon and Pathways, right? Puts you on the top of the list of at least the candidates who are interested. That's the first step. So start with that, and obviously know the leadership principles in and out. Understand that how you have experienced and demonstrated those during all this time. Yes, pick the right courses. Maybe if you want to take a course on operations, not mandatory. And then I think who was it, Satyam? So Satyam asked in the chat that, hey, is an MBA required to get into Pathways, and is there Pathways job in India? Okay, so the MBA. Pathways is starting to recruit outside of MBA as well, so other master's roles as well. I wouldn't say masters of marketing, that probably not, but there are other masters,
supply
chain. It could be other relevant masters that we recruit from. But yeah, picking the right courses could work to your advantage. Yes. Is it mandatory? Probably not.
All right. And more from a networking perspective for the people who are applying right now, do you think they should wait till they get an admit to start networking, or is there something they can do even before that?
It couldn't hurt. You could never. It could never be early enough, right? It could never be early enough. You can always start whenever you feel like, whenever you think you are ready, right? The best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today, right? So do it. If you want to start, 100% start. Satyam, yes, Pathways is active in India. I think we exclusively recruit from IIM Ahmedabad and ISB for now. It's a smaller program than it is in North America, obviously. But yes, Pathways is active in India. I think down the line, if we happen to speak, I would be able to connect you with some people who are a part of the Pathways program in India as well. So would love to do that. But yes, to your point, it is active in India. Yes.
Right. There are some questions that we put in more from the questions that people ask, right? So how and when do I apply? I think that is something that we have already spoken about, which is when the recruitment options open on Amazon. It's typically 6 to 8 months before they launch this particular program, right? So is there any timeline of when they launch the program? Is it like sometime in June, or is there
Internships typically start, I think I started my internship in June. June is when typically your internships start. And then in terms of the full time, there are different cohorts. I think it would vary year over year based on business needs, different business lines. But typically people start joining in like once you graduate. So July, August, September might be the 3 cohorts.
Another question I have on you mentioned about showcasing your leaderships, your skills for the program, right?
Right.
How do you showcase? So one aspect of it is, I have so and so much experience, I've done this. Uh, uh, what do you mean by showcase? Like, how do I showcase that these are the skills I have and I might be the best fit for this particular program?
That's a great question. So Bill, start with your, I'll give a very straightforward answer to this. So start with your resume. It helps because you put everything on paper. Everything that you've done, you put your projects in paper. So that's the first step. The second step is, okay, you start peeling the layers of the onion. You think about, okay, if this was the project, how exactly did it start? What was my particular role? What were the challenges that I faced? How did I navigate those challenges? Did I have to work with multiple stakeholders? Was there a difficult person to work with? Was there a particular challenge or did we hit a wall that, okay, man, like we're stuck? What do we do? Did you think outside the box? And how did you navigate that challenge? Right? That's how you curate your stories. I recommend writing that down in one sheet. So I had one big sheet where I wrote one story each, and just thought through it. And then when I had the whole meat on the table, the last step was to understand, okay, what leadership principle does this tie into? And I promise you, it will. Our leadership principles are pretty exhaustive. They encompass a lot of different like aspects of running a business. So once you put your whole story down for each particular project or situation that you ever dealt with, that the last step would be to pick up the leadership principles around it.
Right. Interesting. In fact, I want to, add in one thing over here, and this is especially for people who are going through this process right now, right? So at Crackverbal, when we go through the application process, this is one thing that we clearly focus on when we start with the whole process, right? Which is the discovery stage, where we make sure that all these aspects of your stories, right? Because what typically happens is when you start seeing a prompt, your brain gets confined to what you have to think for the prompt, and that time you hardly get couple of stories that comes to your mind. The whole idea of the discovery stage that we go through as part of the Crackverbal application process is to make sure that we look at every aspect of your profile. In fact, everything that Kshitij mentioned about, which is understanding your communication skills, your stakeholder management skills, your conflict management skills, your skills of handling, difficult projects or challenges around that, even customers for that matter, because for everyone, somebody you might be working with a B2B customer, somebody it's an internal teams are customers for you in some cases, and sometimes it's B2B, B2C, right? So for everyone, the kind of challenges you face is different, and it is very important to bring out those aspects of your story in the discovery phase itself, so that by the time you start writing your essays, that becomes something that you're very comfortable with and more importantly confident with, because that's how you could showcase your best aspect to the B School, right? My next question to you, Kshitij, how much of operations background that is required? Because if you look at Amazon Pathways program, mostly I've seen most of the titles I've seen is operations manager, right? So, and you yourself, you mentioned that your work involves a lot of operations managing,
right,
large Amazon centers, which could, say 1,000 people to even 10,000 people by the time you finish this course. So, how much of operations background is required? Because for someone who's coming from, say, an oil and gas background, or somebody who's coming from a tech background, where, I have focused more on technology or coding with 4 to 5 years of experience or whatever experience I have. So how much of that is required for this particular program, that specifically because it says operations?
Yeah, no, that's a something I would like to demythify here. No, you do not need to have a prior operations background. Yes, you will be working in operations, but you do not need to have prior operations background. If I've seen people come in from a marketing background. I've seen people coming from hotel industry. I've seen people coming from venture capital industry, so finance. So you definitely do not have to have an operations background. It ultimately boils down to whatever role you were in, what kind of situations you dealt with, and how, more importantly, how did you deal with those. So yeah, you do not need an operations background.
Great. So in fact, I have pulled out a few profiles because we knew this was a question that people will have in their mind.
Yeah.
So we pulled out some profiles, and this is to answer most of your questions. That people have, whether Amazon Pathways is there in Europe or US or Canada or India for that matter. So this is one profile that we've got, somebody who's from IIM Ahmedabad. So if you look at the background, it's absolutely no operations background over here. Focus has been more on narrative design or storytelling or teaching, more importantly. And then after an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, this person has got into the Pathways program. One more profile, this is from
HEC Paris or
HEC Paris, yes, HEC, yeah. And again, completely from a marketing background. So digital marketing background, again, going to a Pathways operations manager role. Okay, this is from INSEAD, again, data analytics background, completely different background, marketing plus data analytics, customer experience. This is somebody who's gone through a hospitality business, completely again different business in operations management and strategy, gone into operations. The other myth that Kshitij, I put it over here is also because a lot of people are asking which schools. So, when we are looking at top companies, and especially that is being the topic of the day, right? That is, how do I get into top companies when I'm doing my MBA, right? So one biggest question that most people have is, top 10 schools are always super competitive, right? And then I have this list of 10 to 20 to 30 ranking schools or top schools in India, which is again very competitive, or any other geography, it's super competitive. So is there any criteria on the kind of schools that are selected, or what is the thought process behind the whole selection of where do I go and look for these Pathways people?
I don't think there's a specific criteria as such. We've been I can speak for Pathways program. We've been expanding our where we source our talent pool from. So you as you said, it is super competitive to get into the top 10 program, and there's a lot of moving parts. There's so many different key pieces of your application, that affects that. So I would say no. First of all, don't be nervous if whatever program you're in, that does not close the door for you. We've been expanding where we source our talent pool from, especially given how Pathways has been growing. It's not restricted to top 10 or top 20 anymore. We are expanding. We believe in giving the opportunity to the candidate based on their skills and their merit, not just based on but you're coming from a top 20, all right, we're going to take you. No, I've seen candidates from top 10 schools, top 5 schools not getting admitted in the Pathways program, and I've seen people maybe ranging from top 30 to top 50 getting admitted very successfully, and more importantly, doing very well in the role itself. So yeah, I would 100% say that it's not restricted to top 10 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
True. So even to support what Kshitij mentioned, if you look at the slide over here, you have schools from London Business School to Ross to IIM Ahmedabad to Imperial to Smurfit, which is not like a top 20 or 30 ranking school. And then you have the top ones like ISB and Cornell, and you have schools in Canada, which is Rotman and Shoolidge, UK, which is Imperial, Oxford, LBS, and you have McDonough, which is like a 2021, 20 to 30 ranking school, which is again another school that you could look at where these people are picked for these leadership development programs, right? So with that, I think we have I hope you guys have a very good idea about what it takes to get into these programs. I have some questions over here that people have asked. So my first question is, I'm an army officer with 19 years of experience applying for an MBA program in 2023. First of all, do I need an MBA? So I think that is something that we've already addressed. But does my armed forces experience suffice? Because I am somebody with high experience, and I'm looking at an Indian. So this person is looking at an Indian program like ISD. How does an Amazon Pathways program look at somebody with this kind of background and experience?
Yeah, I would say apply right now. Amazon loves veterans. We absolutely value veteran experience because we know the kind of rigorousness that you have gone through. We know the kind of situations you have dealt with. We know you've worked with multiple people, you've led multiple people, you've worked with stakeholders successfully. So I think there's a pathways. We love veterans so much that there's a military pathways program. So there's the pathways program that you come in after your MBA or master's, and then there's a military pathways program. Both are essentially the same, but the military, obviously, as the name says, the military pathways program sources veterans.
There's one more question over here that says in US and Canada, schools don't have placement options, right? Unlike India, where you have day one placement and day two placement. Right. So how do people approach for internships and jobs in such companies?
Networking plays a big role. Especially in the US, and people often see networking, and not to their fault. People see networking in a bad light. Once you go through it, I can speak for myself, I enjoyed the entire process. It helped me discover myself, honestly. So because there's no particular structure around placement process like there is in India, like we are so used to it, I would say like networking is a key piece of information. How do you present yourself? Who do you reach out to? When do you do that? And what do you talk about? Right? How do you tell them that, hey, I am the candidate for this role. If you want this to be done, I'm the one. So that's the way to navigate around it. I think just because it's something of a newer concept to us, we often fall back on that. I would say no, take the lead. Start early. I cannot emphasize enough, as I said earlier, start early, start before your MBA if you want, 100%.
In fact, I was talking to one student who is currently at NYU Stern, and she said 1 month into the program, everybody was just focusing on going for coffee meetings and coffee chats, and just focusing on making sure that how do I get the next internship. And in fact, even the professors were more encouraging, saying, hey, don't worry about missing the class, please go ahead for your coffee chat.
Right. Yeah, that's important. And now I'm glad you brought that up, because when you think about it, 1 month, 2 months into the program, everyone is doing it. So it's even more important that you start even earlier. I mean, it's sad to say, but yeah, like you have to, if you want to get a head start, you have to start early. Yeah.
Right. So I'm getting a lot of questions here where people are talking about if I have more experience, if I have 8 years experience, or if I have 10 years experience, does the experience thing actually count for these programs? Do they want people with more experience, or they prefer people with less experience? Is there something around that?
The only thing I would say when it comes to work experience is you need to have, a minimum of 3 years. There's no max. You can come in with 10 years of work experience. There's no maximum work experience around it. You just need to have minimum of 3 years, just given the kind of role, the nature of the role. We require someone who has worked and understands, not just fresh out. So I think that's the minimum requirement. 3 years, there's no max.
All right. There's one other very interesting question, and this is Nidhi who's asked this questions. What are the factors that you have considered before you apply for the Pathways program? Can you elaborate on your research experience among various career paths of leadership and various other career paths and other leadership programs? Very interesting.
Yeah, that's a great question, Nidhi. Yeah, thanks for asking that. So, for me, I was fortunate enough to be a part of the internship program as well, right? So I got to experience Pathways and what life as a Pathways is like even before I signed the full-time offer. What really drove me was the focus on execution, not to take a punch on consulting, but it was more than strategizing. I love the part where I could make mistakes, I could learn from it, I could see my failure, because it is bound to happen. It's about how you deal with it, how do you recover. I wanted to design strategies, implement the program, see the results the very next day, and maybe even 1 year down the line. That was a key deciding factor. I wanted to develop those skills. I knew, for me personally, I knew what was missing in my professional journey, or what skills was I missing to lead a company, right? So Pathways for me was the perfect platform that bridged the gap. For me, it was forcing myself to be in situations where I knew I wouldn't be the most comfortable in, but I would come out winning, if that makes sense.
Right. So, when you're looking at applying for these leadership programs, how many different leadership programs options are typically available for MBA grads?
Quite a bit. It would also depend on your school, but if I try to count, there's 4 within Amazon itself, but if we can consider Amazon just as one holistic program or source, so there's multiple, anywhere easily between 10 to 15, which probably would sponsor H1B candidates. I know that's a deciding factor too. So obviously Amazon does, and there's multiple other companies that do that.
Right. I have another question here. It says, I have 8 years of experience in mechanical design. Can a 1 year program from maybe IIM and IIT land me into operations role in companies like Amazon? I think it is tied to the operations role and Amazon. India or abroad, is more like a generic thing over here. So maybe you could talk more about the operation role in companies like Amazon with a mechanical design background.
Yeah, no, I think it works in your favor. You already have 9 years of work experience. I think the 1 year MBA would be perfect for you. I think the 1 year worth of investment should put you on the right track. It will help you navigate into a management role. And I 100%. I'm Ahmedabad 1 year. I'm not particularly sure if people have gotten recruited from the 1 year MBA program from IIM Ahmedabad. I've obviously heard good things about the program. My recommendation would be to reach out specifically either to the career services team at IIM Ahmedabad or maybe some of the alums. But I can speak for other 1 year MBA program, like Cornell also offers a 1 year MBA program, and people have successfully gotten into Pathways and other roles from the 1 year program.
So I have a question that might interest you. So this is, do they prefer people with entrepreneurial background? Since you had some bit of that.
I have a particular bias for this one, because I only worked in my family business or as an entrepreneur before coming to my MBA. I've seen other companies that sort of did not, take a chance on me because of this particular background. I had some other companies that particularly asked me this question: hey, have you worked anywhere outside your family business? No one at Amazon asked me this question. They absolutely loved the background. They could see the depth in what I've done, the kind of ownership that I've had. And if you look at our leadership principles, ownership is a big one. So I would say, if that's what you've done in your entrepreneurial background, heck yeah, go for it. Yeah, we absolutely love entrepreneurs. We want entrepreneurs in Amazon so that you can bring in that mindset that we've had here from day one. Yeah.
Awesome. So I have some very interesting and very thought-provoking questions also over here. So I have Madhuri asking that, do you have any person in the Amazon C-suite who you would like to emulate? And what are the qualities that you really appreciated?
I mean, it's a big list, right? It's a big list. In the Amazon C-suite, I would think of Jeff Bezos. The only way I know so much about him is mostly one, being a part of the company, having seen what the company does and what our culture is, and having the company preserve this culture for over 24 years. So that's definitely one. But there's a consistency across the company as how C-suite leaders lead. I've seen multiple leaders that started as a pathways and are now vice VPs, right? And they share the same mindset. It's the day one philosophy that every day is day one. How do we do better than what we did yesterday? That's the, to your point, the mindset that I embrace, and it's just consistent. It's phenomenal how consistent it is across the company. There's a famous saying, like in one of our all hands meetings, someone asked Jeff Bezos because we keep saying it every day is day one. So someone asked what is day two, and he gave a beautiful answer that I don't remember it exactly, but I'll paraphrase that. Day two is stagnation, it is losing, and ultimately it is death. So yeah, that's the quality.
Interesting. I have one more question here. Again, interesting question. Is it possible to crack pathways in the second year if you don't get a summer internship and pathways in the first year? Also, does the pathways have something called a pre-MBA pathways program?
So there's no pre-MBA pathways program. We used to have an early admit session where you would probably my roommate back in school, he interned as a pathways as well, and he landed his pathways internship offer 1 week into the MBA program. So we used to have that. I don't remember having this last year, but please keep an eye out. You will see the rec open if there exists. Your school recruitment team will also reach out to you or help you with that. What was the second part of the program?
The second question is, if you don't do it in the first year, is it possible to get in the second
year? Absolutely. I've seen a lot of people successfully do that. Yeah, in fact, like I think our previous director was someone who interned at McKinsey and then started pathways full time. Yeah.
So I think I will close this with one very interesting question. How is generative AI shaping up at Amazon, and how should we prepare ourselves for the coming year? Very open-ended, very huge question, but yeah.
No, that's a great and a very relevant question. Generative AI. So at Amazon, we've been using generative AI and machine learning before it became a buzzword 1 year ago. We've always had systems in place that we've leveraged AI with. Once you get in, you would be surprised to see the kind of infrastructure that we have around automation, around decision making, and making exact decision and forecasting, especially forecasting for volume trends, forecasting for anything down the line. And we've leveraged AI even before that. So finally, yes, the world is catching up, is what I would say. It's starting to become a very like a much used word. It's shaping the future for sure. In terms of how do you prepare for it, I would say don't worry about it. Embrace the changes. Explore it, play around with it. Yeah.
All right. I think that's about it. I have most of the questions that we have answered. Thank you, Kshitij, for your time. This was amazing and so valuable. Your insights were invaluable. We really enjoyed this session. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm sure you guys found this valuable too. Thank you so much, guys. Have a nice weekend. Thank you, Kshitij.